you know, last week we talked about death, and there are three other major topics within the small scope outline of the Lam Rim: the suffering of the lower realms, refuge in the three jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and developing faith in cause and effect, or karma. So after reflecting on the certainty of death, the uncertain time of death, and the need to practice Dharma purely to prepare ourselves, we are advised to do analytical meditation on probably what is the most uncomfortable topic in the entire Lam Rim, which is the suffering of the lower realms. So in Buddhism, samsara is defined by 6 realms of existence, 3 lower realms, hell beings, hungry ghosts, and animals, and 3 higher realms, human, demigod, and God realm. The division into lower and higher is based upon the relatively greater suffering and lesser opportunity for spiritual development in the lower realms. These 6 realms are depicted on the Wheel of Life illustration that is often seen near the entrance to Tibetan Buddhist temples and described in detail in the Lam Rim. Death is obvious when we rationally face it, but otherwise we tend to deny it. How much more challenging it is than to consider the possibility that there exist realms of incredible suffering with outlandish descriptions of beings consumed by flames and hacked at by demons with knives, and where the duration spent in those realms is in the millions of years. So it's like some kind of science fiction horror movie. Personally, I don't remember seeing hell realms or hungry ghost realms, but I've learned how stubborn my ego can be in holding on to its preferred view of reality. In just the short space of my lifetime, there have been so many unanswered questions regarding the structure of the universe. If I can't prove that something doesn't exist, how can I say for certain that these descriptions of the lower realms are just scriptural metaphor? So I try to keep an open mind regarding the lower realms and encourage you to do the same. So there's a parallel here in contemporary society. For several decades, there's been a lot of debate about climate change, even though more than 97% of climate scientists accept that human industrial activity is responsible for changing the Earth's climate and creating an unprecedented danger to all life. American culture still acts as if climate change isn't a major problem. We drive our big cars, take trips on airplanes whenever we like, and elect politicians who merely tinker with the status quo without seriously addressing the crisis. What if we acted as if the climate emergency were real? So this is just my opinion here, but I think we learn to live simpler lives with much smaller resource footprints. We'd reduce economic inequality and prioritize healthy living for everyone. The physical welfare of the majority of beings on the planet would improve. In the same way, what if we acted as if the lower realms were real? We'd all maintain impeccable ethical discipline, and due to the force of our virtuous karma, we'd suffer a lot less and be much more likely to be reborn in fortunate circumstances. So regardless of whether the lower realms exist or the climate crisis is as dangerous as some suggest, the remedy in both cases benefits everyone, even the billionaires who think that happiness is defined by how much money you have. Death is definitely coming, and most of us can't say with any certainty what happens after death. If the lower realms do exist, then it would seem wise to seek a refuge that can protect us from such a fate. In Buddhism, the method for attaining happiness in a future rebirth is divided into two topics: taking refuge in the three jewels and developing faith in the laws of karma. The three jewels in Buddhism are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Buddha is an enlightened being and usually refers to Shakyamuni Buddha, born some 2,500 years ago. The Dharma is understood on a basic level as the teaching of Buddha, and the Sangha is, broadly speaking, the spiritual community. In a more strict textual interpretation, the Sangha is any group of 4 or more monks and nuns, or anyone who has realized emptiness. We take refuge in these objects because they protect us from suffering in the lower realms and guide us to liberation and enlightenment. To truly understand and obtain the benefit of refuge requires that we actually study the teachings and work on changing our behavior. Holding our hands together to make a prayer gesture or bowing before an altar are merely empty movements of the body unless we have some internal understanding of the qualities of the objects of refuge, the path that they represent, and in particular, the advice on how to act once we've taken refuge. After studying the Buddhist teachings, if an individual decides that they would like to make a formal commitment to the Buddhist path, it can be quite beneficial to participate in a refuge ceremony with a qualified teacher and recite the refuge precepts, followed by taking one or up to all of the 5 lay precepts for life. The 5 precepts are to abstain from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, which generally refers to adultery, lying, or consuming intoxicants. The refuge precepts aren't commandments, and if we break the precepts, that doesn't make us evil. There are methods to purify and restore our precepts if we break them. The Buddha developed the precepts based on his omniscient mind that enabled him to directly see karma very clearly. He observed that when actions such as killing and so forth are committed, the karmic result is suffering. Ethical discipline is the foundation for concentration, which is required to develop insight or wisdom. If we've created many harmful actions, it will be very difficult to sit quietly with a calm mind and focus on anything. I'll talk more about the karmic results of actions next week, but I'd like to share a personal story here about the 5th precept. So I drank very little alcohol until I went to college, but during fraternity rush week in my first year, I got very drunk twice in 1 week. After that, I learned to drink in moderation. But in the last semester of my senior year, I had a job interview over dinner with a recruiter from DuPont. Hard to imagine me working for a chemical company, but in any case, there I was, 20 years old, quite naive and feeling a little bit proud because all of the other job candidates only had interviews in an office on campus, and the recruiter had decided to invite me to dinner. The waitress came over and asked us, "Would you like to order something to drink?" The recruiter gestured to me to go first. I thought to myself, if I don't order something like a beer and just order water, I might look too uptight. Maybe it would be better to order a beer. So I did. The recruiter immediately said, "Perrier water, please," and then remarked to me, "I don't drink alcohol because I like to keep my mind sharp." I sensed the interview was over at that point, and I'm glad that I never went to work at DuPont. But I'm also grateful because his words really stuck with me. Maybe the recruiter was a bodhisattva who spontaneously appeared to give me a teaching. Of course, we live in a society where it is socially acceptable to drink, and it's even legal now to smoke cannabis in many states. But if one takes seriously the advice of Buddha, it is wise to abstain from intoxicants. The causes for developing refuge are a sense of concern for future lives and faith that the three jewels have the ability to protect us from the suffering of the lower realms. Reciting the refuge prayer 3 times in the morning and evening reminds us of our commitments and helps us maintain mindfulness of our Buddhist practice through the day and places virtuous imprints in our mind stream before bed, which has the side benefit of helping us sleep better. So you don't have to be a Buddhist to recite the refuge prayer. I mean, you can kind of recite it and see how it feels, like try it out. So it goes like this. I take refuge until I've awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha by the positive potential I create by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. So typically we recite that 3 times. So again, merely reciting the words creates positive karmic imprints on our mind, but in order for our refuge practice to bear fruit and actually lead to the goal of a fortunate rebirth or liberation and enlightenment, we need to understand what the 3 jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are. Buddha is a term for any being who has fully developed all their virtuous qualities and completely eliminated all delusions and obscurations from their mind. In the later stages of Buddhist practice, we actually imagine ourselves as the Buddha we will someday become. Buddha may also refer to the historical Buddha of our time, Shakyamuni, who was born Prince Siddhartha in what is now Nepal. Although his father, the king, tried to shield him from all suffering and groomed him to be the future king, after venturing outside the palace one day and seeing an old person, a sick person, a dying person, and then a monk, he renounced his claim to the throne and went to the forest to practice meditation, first with various teachers, and then eventually in solitude, until he attained complete enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. After realizing the truth, he thought to himself, this Dharma is so profound that few will understand. Perhaps I should just stay in the forest and live a quiet life of solitude. But the god Brahma spoke to him and said, there are some who might understand, and so encouraged him to teach, which he did beginning with his first teaching on the 4 Noble Truths. The objects of refuge have both conventional and ultimate aspects, which can also be thought of as causal and resultant. The conventional aspects are physical objects we can see or read, an image of Buddha or a statue of Buddha, our teacher, the Tengyur and Kangyur, which are the complete set of scriptures and commentaries, and the community of monks and nuns. The ultimate aspects of refuge are all internal realizations. Showing respect and honoring the outer objects of refuge, studying their qualities is where we begin, but over time, with further study and meditation, we develop the inner objects of refuge, which gradually transform into our own liberation and enlightenment. In most Buddhist traditions, you will see an altar in the temple or in someone's home where they practice. A statue of the Buddha may contain relics of great masters. I have a few statues which have trace fragments of the Dalai Lama's hair, which have been ground up into special herbal pills called mani. Larger statues may actually have tiny gemstones found in the ashes of the Buddha or other masters after they have been cremated. Statues of the Buddha aren't the actual object we take refuge in, but a physical representation of the Buddha meant to inspire faith. Similarly, a text is often placed on the altar representing the holy speech of the Buddha, and enlightenment stupa represents the mind of Buddha. The most famous stupa is the Mahabodhi stupa in Bodh Gaya, India, where Shakyamuni Buddha attained enlightenment 2,500 years ago. It's important to respect holy objects for what they represent, but it's also easy to go on an ego trip, carried away by worldly concerns of decorating our home with holy objects, but paying very little attention to their meaning. The actual refuge is the Dharma. That's the key to our own fortunate rebirth, liberation, and enlightenment. And ultimately, that refuge is an internal realization that we develop over time. It's not something out there that we are paying homage to. One final note, Buddhism in its essence is gender neutral. Anyone can become a Buddha, male, female, or non-binary individuals. I don't know if this is true or not, but often when I look at some of the traditional paintings of Buddhas, they seem to have androgynous features, which suggest that Buddhas integrate both female and male energies within their body. I have no doubt that there have been many female Buddhas in the past and will be in the future, and perhaps there are female Buddhas right now living among us. In Tibetan Buddhism, Tara is seen as one such female Buddha, and in Chinese tradition, she is known as Kuan Yin. Historically, of course, Buddhism, like all religious institutions, mirrors society, and in that respect, there's obviously a lot of patriarchy, gender inequality, and unfortunately, some cases of sexual abuse, mostly from male teachers towards female students. This is totally unacceptable, and Dharma organizations need to implement strict ethical protocols with transparent procedures for dealing with allegations of sexual abuse. This situation also underscores the importance of choosing your teachers wisely and being a diligent student who doesn't sacrifice your wisdom to anyone merely because they sit on a high throne, wear silk robes, and say things that please the ego. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings attain enlightenment. So I did that a little backwards today. Usually we start with a meditation, but we could do some meditation now, or we could, if anybody has any questions, we could do some questions now and do the meditation at the end.
I just have one about, happiness in a future of rebirth. Like if you're focusing on that, or if you're focusing your actions on that, like how do you counterbalance it with being happy in the present?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's important to be happy in this life, and being happy is kind of a key ingredient to doing spiritual practice, kind of like eating food. If your mind is not happy, it's difficult to sit down and focus and we have to pay attention. Why am I unhappy? And a lot of times there's a lot of kind of worldly stuff we have to figure out, and so it's not that we ignore the happiness of this life. It's just that we try to keep a balanced perspective that doesn't get too attached to the happiness of this life and think, oh, if I don't get this promotion, or if this friend doesn't say nice words to me today, we don't lose our mind over things that only pertain to this life, because it's definitely a balancing act. We're kind of stuck in this samsaric existence where things are often problematic and there's unpleasant stuff that comes up, so I guess it's sort of meant to keep us from falling too far off of out of balance. Let's do a little meditation then, and so just find your comfortable posture again. It's a balance of relaxation and alertness. And you can either close your eyes or leave them slightly open. Many teachers say it's good to leave the eyes slightly open with a real soft focus, not, not looking at anything objectively, but just allowing some light to come into your eyes, and can often prevent sleepiness in the morning or the evening. And just become aware of your body sitting, the gravity of the earth pulling us down. And just open up your posture so that the energy flows. Relaxing any areas of habitual tension. And bring your attention to your breathing. Just noticing the in-breath and the out-breath. Whenever thoughts arise, just bring the mind gently back to the breath without chasing after the thought, no matter how interesting it is. And for the last 5 minutes, just consider what refuge might look for you, whether you consider yourself Buddhist or not. Just thinking about anything that was talked about this morning. And what your refuge looks like and what you would like it to be like. I was just thinking about that last question I posed about what I'd like to see refuge as in my life. And I realize, I have some like stomach pain right now, and much of the time I seek refuge in my body, which is kind of the antithesis of all of these teachings, it's because the body is, as you raised an interesting point, Shane, that we can't disregard the body, but we have to realize it's not like a final refuge. We have to take care of it for this life and function, but in the end, the body is going to abandon us, or separate from our mind, and the mind goes on. So anyways, that was my reflection. I'm curious if you guys had any interesting thoughts come up.
I'll share. My first thought was to have a full heart, and then it kind of spun into what does that mean? What is full? And then more questions. What is happiness? And then I think I landed on like I want to have a light heart, like for myself and for others. and not carry the weight of the things that don't matter.
That's beautiful.
With me, I don't know, for some reason I'm pretty scattered this morning. But yeah, I mean, if you pose that, I was just trying to think of, the three things: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, that I try to take refuge in every day, and just where those are in my life right now. And been trying to do this, just my own study on the Lam Rim through this program, FPMT. And I'm sort of stuck on the teacher, just beginning. I can't seem to move out of it. But it's really important, I think, to have a teacher, and I'm so appreciative towards you and just all the people that I've run across that have helped me, just kind of try and figure out what it means. So I was just thinking about that, and to use that, as sort of a tool to think that, when I get down on myself and I'm not doing everything right, that we're all fallible and we're all human, and but then I also admire, all those teachers that have come through my life, and so we're just kind of trying to slog through all this, and then it's just important for me to kind of find a home. I've moved around a lot, and so it's nice that I think when I made the most strides is when I was really connected to a tight community, a Buddhist community, and I haven't quite found that the last few years. So, but it seems like I'm kind of getting somewhere here, and that's always nice. So I feel like that kind of pushes me forward. So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's been a tough few years for everybody, not least, people trying to be connected to any kind of community, whether it's a spiritual community or social community. And I really hear your a lot of self-reflection, from both of you. It's that's really so key, to the path. We hear these teachings, we read them, and we do some meditation, but that's been such an important part, is trying to do reflection, like, what do these teachings actually mean to me in my life? Like, what's looking at it in the context of my current life, and trying to always apply that analysis that tries to understand things, have that light heart that you were talking about, Shane. It's like, because the habit to, there's always that habit to have kind of a heavy heart, and be easily bruised by our interactions with others. And what was the other day? I met somebody out at West Point yesterday or the day before. I rode my bike out there just to get out, and we were talking on the beach, and we had kind of a connection, and I wanted to send him some information, and I was like, oh, where you must be on social media somewhere. And he said he was on Facebook, and so I immediately just sent him a friend request, and then when I got home, I was looking for his profile on Facebook, and it popped up for like a second, then it disappeared. And I don't know if it's like like I kind of figured out, well, he might have blocked me, like, and so I had all these questions like, oh, geez, that's weird. I thought we had a pretty friendly interaction, but, but I just kind of checked myself, and it's like, okay, I don't know what the situation is, no need to like spin out on this too much, and, you know, just honor the interaction for what it was. And um, anyways, yeah, so yeah, I'm really getting a lot out of this too, just the ability to share and connect, and then think about the teachings during the week, between teachings. So thank you both for being here. Anything you guys are looking forward to in the next week, or challenges?
Just being easier on myself and others.
Thank you for that. I can always use a dose of that.
Yeah, I'd say that's the same for me. I just yeah, my head's just been in a weird place, and I keep kind of revisiting things I thought I had accepted um and dealt with, and because I keep going back to it, I'm kind of beating myself up. So hopefully I can, yeah, be a little nicer to myself this week, and yeah, our thoughts go where they go, and really just gotta let them come and go, and not get too caught up in them.
And keep training your mind, that eventually it'll find the right grooves to be in that won't get sidetracked too deeply by things, even our own conscience. I mean, like, we've all made mistakes in our past and done things that we regret, and that's where we can do purification practice. One of the purification practices, I mean, basically is just recognizing the harm you've done. I mean, I used to kill ants with a magnifying glass when I was 5 or something. Had nobody enlightened me that ants are sentient beings that feel pain, and I still think about that sometimes. But recognizing that we've created harm, and remembering, kind of re-energizing our commitment to not harm others with our body, speech, and mind. Being easy on ourselves, including ourselves. Not abusing ourselves, and then also studying the Dharma is considered a form of purification, because you're devoting yourself to a path of healing, whether it's just trying to live an ethical life and get a good rebirth, or aspire for higher spiritual goals like liberation and enlightenment. It's all of those are considered positive. So, well, on a real practical note, that just for not only spiritual health but mental health, just going out walking. Modern life, we're so kind of narrow focused on like screens and problems in our head, and just looking at the horizon. My teachers would always say, it's so good for both your eyes but also your mind, to have that expansive view where you can look out and see the mountains and the sky, And many problems dissolve of their own accord beneath the gaze of nature. So, okay, well, I'll just recite a short dedication prayer, thinking of all the positive energy we've created together. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of medicine Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi not yet born rise. May that born Bodhi God increase for. Thank you both. Nice to see you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you.